Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're looking at unspoken trust, which is basically a management masterclass. We talk a lot about leadership in terms of metrics and KPIs, right? But what about the invisible glue that holds all of that together? Well, it's a fascinating journey that actually starts with an ancient fable and ends right at the desk of modern corporate strategy. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Why do your absolute best, most hardworking employees suddenly just stop trying? We see this phenomenon everywhere right now. People label it as quiet quitting or extreme disengagement. It's when the exact folks who used to carry the heaviest loads suddenly just clock in, do the bare minimum, and clock right back out. They don't actually quit their jobs, but they absolutely quit going above and beyond. It's incredibly frustrating for management, for sure. But the root cause of this behavioral shift? It's deeply psychological. And honestly, we've understood it for centuries. To crack this mystery, we're drawing some essential insights from Vonne Works Management and Consultancy Services. They point out that real forward momentum in business requires a rock-solid foundation. You have to look beneath the surface of the daily operations to understand the profound, often unspoken dynamics that actually dictate an organization's health and growth. To really wrap our heads around this, we actually need to travel all the way back to ancient China. Imagine having a bird do your fishing for you. Seriously, fishermen used to tame this specific type of aquatic bird called a cormorant. The fisherman would place a perfectly sized copper ring around the bird's neck. Because of this ring, when the bird dove into the water and caught a massive fish, it literally couldn't swallow it. So the bird would bring that big fish back to the boat. Then, as a reward, the fisherman would give the bird a small fish that it could easily swallow. Step 1, 2, 3. It was a highly effective, incredibly reliable system. Now, this entire system hinged on one absolutely crucial thing: the unspoken contract. Mutual effort, mutual reward. The bird and the fisherman worked happily together, day in and day out, based purely on this silent agreement. There were no signed pieces of paper, no human resources departments, no union reps on these boats. The bird trusted that if it did the heavy lifting, the fisherman would honor that effort with a fair reward. And as long as that was respected, everybody won. Both parties thrived.
But, well, human nature being what it is, greed eventually crept in. One day, the fisherman looks at the bird and thinks, this bird can't swallow the big fish anyway because of the copper ring, so why should I even bother giving it a reward? That day, the fisherman kept the massive catch for himself, and instead of handing over the customary small fish, he tossed the bird nothing but discarded fish bones. He took the big prize, completely devalued the effort it took to get it, and unilaterally broke that unspoken contract.
And here is the most fascinating part of the story: the bird's reaction. It didn't fight, it didn't squawk, it didn't complain. It simply walked away quietly. It didn't eat the bones, but it also didn't cause a massive scene. However, the very next day, that bird completely stopped going into the deep water where the big fish lived. Instead, it stayed in the shallows. It only caught tiny fish and little shrimp, just enough to feed itself, stuff small enough to slip past the copper ring. And the result? Gradually, day by day, that greedy fisherman's basket remained completely empty. So what does a fishing bird from ancient China actually teach us about modern HR and management? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how perfectly it mirrors our earlier question about employees suddenly stopping their efforts. Are you understanding the parallel here? Because we are pivoting right now from a historical fable straight into the heart of corporate psychology. The bird isn't just a bird anymore, and the fisherman is no longer just some guy on a boat. In psychology and management, this fable is known as the cormorant dilemma. It highlights a universal truth. In any relationship, and especially in a professional one, unspoken trust is vastly more valuable and powerful than any written contract. I mean, you can have ironclad employment agreements, NDAs, and strict job descriptions, but if that underlying unspoken trust breaks, the whole shebang changes. The employee will still show up, they'll still look like they're working, catching those small fish in the shallows, but the company entirely stops moving forward. Let's map this out, because when we look at this fable next to our corporate reality, it's pretty striking. The greedy fisherman, that's toxic management or a greedy corporate structure. That cormorant bird is your highly capable, remarkably loyal employee who is doing all the heavy lifting. The big fish represents major corporate wins, the record sales, the huge projects, the innovations. And those fish bones, that's the disrespect, the lack of fair compensation, or just a total failure to acknowledge hard work. When management treats talent like easily replaceable servants and tosses them bones while keeping all the glory, they are making the exact same fatal mistake. Drawing again from the insights of Vonne Works Management and Consultancy Services, we are left with a really clear blueprint here. First, guard unspoken trust fiercely. It's always greater than any written contract. Second, respect employee loyalty. Recognize that if someone is carrying the heavy lifting on their shoulders, it's a gift of their trust, not because they're stuck there. Never treat talent as bound servants who just have to obey. Capable people are just that, capable. If you push them too far, they won't just retreat to the shallows. They will fly away and find their own path entirely. I really want you to listen to this quote closely. Loss always comes to those who do not value others. It is a universal truth, in business and in life. When you stop valuing the people who actually make your success possible, you aren't just hurting them. You are actively sabotaging your own future. That fisherman thought he was being so clever, saving himself a tiny fish, but in the end, his basket was completely empty. Taking advantage of good people is just a short-term game with a devastating long-term cost. And that brings us to the end of today's explainer. But I want to leave you with something to chew on. If you look closely at your own workplace, are you nurturing that unspoken contract, or are you just handing out fish bones and expecting big fish in return? Do you agree with this dilemma? If you do, drop a comment below and type "Trust Matters." Trust truly is the invisible currency of success. Please take a moment to share this crucial lesson with your team, your friends, or your family. Thanks so much for learning with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.